And again, thanks for the organization for inviting me to participate. I shall try and explain our views of how things are evolving, not only from IDD perspective, but also many of the challenges that as brokers we will be facing in the near future, if not already facing them. Good. Again, I mentioned who is BIPAR. BIPAR is the Federation of Insurance Intermediaries, representing 53 associations in 30 countries in Europe, and we are the single voice to represent the interests of our profession in face of the EU authorities at different levels. So we feel it's very good that the different associations, in the case of Romania, are very well represented, are also part of BIPAR, because the fact that we can speak with a single voice can help all of us in terms of trying to legitimately defend our interests. Context. Well, we have hundreds of things that really are going to affect us, and really the origin of IDD, G20, the FSSB, IIS, OECD, United Nations, WTA, prudential and conduct regulation and supervision. So as you can see, we can no longer say, well, this is coming from one legislator or one authority. Really what happens is that there are many levels of authorities and many levels of people who can influence and will drive the different legislation that we're subject to. That was under the financial crisis. There is, as you are fully aware, an avalanche of regulation. IDD, MiFID, PRIPS, Directive on Mortgage Credit, Solvency II, General Data Protection, pensions, anti-money laundering, alternative and online dispute resolutions. And in addition, we will be seeing all of these specialized in different ways through the Level 2 and Level 3 measures that we will be facing in the near future. Regarding the IDD, as I mentioned yesterday, it's a wider scope directive, and therefore it covers not only intermediaries, but anyone who wishes to distribute or offer insurance products to clients. In this sense, we feel it's good because formerly there was, particularly in some countries, a gap in terms of distribution, and some of the different members were not really following the same rules, which can lead to a lack of a level playing field, which is really what's most important about. Also, one thing that we really would like to stress is that IDD, although not perfect, at least not perfect in my view, but it's a well-balanced legislation, and we feel that national regulators, whilst it's important that they preserve the specificities of each country, because you cannot really expect to change everything in one go, but they should not go beyond what's on the IDD, particularly on the key subjects such as retribution, that are allowing us to make commissions and/or fees depending on the type of client. But we should, or the national legislature should not go beyond that, although they are obviously authorized to do so because it's a minimum harmonization directive. One key point from an intermediary's perspective is managing conflicts of interest. In this regard, we must at all times see that we are trying to provide clients with what's best for the needs according to our professional knowledge. That is something that I think, generally do, and also market competition forces us to do so. It's not really new to us, but we must keep it in mind. Transparency and in terms of the nature and type of remuneration, that was already in the previous directive, so there's no change in that sense. Something which can be a bit tricky is the new IPID, the information about each of the insurances, because although in theory can be good for customers to better understand the insurance that they are buying or that they perhaps are going to buy, but again, should not be turned, as it happens, at least in some of the financial sector, as another document, or as another document that it's handed over to clients and really has no impact in them understanding better what's a product. And also from an intermediary's perspective, there are some things which are not clear, such as if we present a client with several offers, Do we need to present all the IPIDs at the same time? Do we just present the IPID as it is? Do we must keep track that we have handed over that IPID to the client, and that takes certain administrative work. And also, depending on the country, we fear that the IPID could substitute the insurance contract, which is not the idea, and EIOPA has clearly said it's not the idea. However, this would have to be seen how it evolves, particularly how judges interpret this in each of the different countries. Demands and need test. This is important that when a product is assigned, people or the people assigning the product know and understand that that product fits properly the requirements of each client. Continuous professional development, that's not new. It might be an excess burden or an additional burden in some countries depending on the previous element, but I think we cannot argue that professional development is important for our profession, and we really need to focus in having all of us and our employees better prepared to service the needs of the clients. Product oversight and governance, this is still being debated because it's subject to the delegated acts by EIOPA. It was presented already, the EIOPA's position, to the Parliament in February, and now we will see how it evolves. But ideally, it should clarify, one, who is, where the responsibilities lie, in that sense that the manufacturer normally is the insurer, but if an intermediary, particularly a broker, is assisting or providing a special contract, when exactly is considered to be a manufacturer, and to what percentage of responsibility. So these are issues that still need to be resolved. Also, when a product is created, it has to be appropriate and addressed to the right market. But that's something that can change in the lapse of time. So we must pay attention in this field. EBIT, subject to the appropriateness and suitability. We will see also how delegated acts end up, but we hope that in no way commissions are banned or through the backdoor banned, and they should remain as it is, because it's very legitimate that we all earn commissions and we have them to suppress. In this regard, we have seen markets where suppressing commissions or sometimes fees, in fact, has left part of the population without access to advice in this type of product. So we feel it would be very wrong. Well, we have to adapt to ongoing changing set of rules. I mean, this is not something that, okay, we have the IDD, let's relax, we know where we stand. No, things will continue to change, and we must be prepared at all times, because there is plenty of legislation coming, and we really need to continuously adapt to it. Organizing dialogue with new supervisory system, well, rules, standards, tools, audit-style supervision. It means that particularly EIOPA, and they have already stressed so, they are going to be continuously supervising what's happening and monitoring the involvement. This, if well carried out, will be good in the sense that it will be, it will assist to evaluate whether the legislation or the laws are working properly. But if taken to the extreme, we can find to ourselves that every year we have new laws or new regulations which will be difficult to adapt and comply with. In addition, and as I said, IDD is very important for us, but we are really in the middle of lots of things happening. Particularly, digitalization is very important. And I wouldn't perhaps worry so much about InsurTech or the separation of the intermediaries. I think provided we give a service to the clients, our position is well established. But however, we cannot forget that there'll be many things that will change, even if we continue to act as traditional intermediaries. But Internet of Things, automated cars, or we don't need to think of automated cars. Already, I've seen tests of lorries that they go on convoys, 3-4 lorries in the same way, and the lorries behind, they're totally controlled. So therefore, that will have an impact in pricing of insurance, will have an impact on many things. So we shouldn't be thinking on digital just as, okay, we are going to be substituted by robo-advice or something. That is a risk, but not necessarily what's going to happen. What it is certain, that will impact everything, and there'll be types of insurances or types of products that will likely change in the very near future. I don't think we're talking of many years ahead of us. Also, another issue which is affecting everyone, I think it's key that we are aware that reputational issues are going to be very, very much in line. Today, social networks are really accessible to everyone. I don't think you can say that just the youngsters use social networks. I mean, we all use different type of networks, but in these networks, you can say comments. Sometimes they are true, sometimes they're not, but they can certainly have a reputational effect. The other day I was in Spain and I received through whichever network a complaint from someone who was saying that he had been mistreated by his insurance company. He didn't say what happened, he didn't say anything, but that became viral. Lots of people received that, and whether that was true or not, either you are prepared and equipped to respond to it, or he's going to have the final word. And that affects insurers for sure, and more so perhaps than intermediaries, but also at a local level, what happens if all of the people in our town or in the area of where we work, suddenly they read something which is negative about our own business. That will have an impact on ourselves. We must keep an eye on it. Just this is a brief summary, I mean, of all the different points that will be affecting us: blockchain, smart contracts, artificial intelligence, sharing economy, Internet of Things, etc. Just what I've said. And one key point which was mentioned yesterday, geolocalization, which potentially could exclude certain risk, and therefore leaving part of the population without adequate coverage. On top of what's also beginning to arrive regarding biogenetics, analyze and everything that could have an impact on health insurance. And I think it's a fundamental impact because insurance is based on mutualizing a group of people for the benefit of all the people. But if you start singling out people, then that's really not what insurance has been traditionally about. Customers. We must be aware that although people of, let's say, our age we're not native to digitalization, but lots of younger people are already. The newer, younger generations have been born to it. And something that I have seen, I don't know whether this is the case in Romania, but I've seen in Spain that younger people, they want to buy direct, even if sometimes they don't have the real knowledge of or understanding of that, but they feel empowered. I mean, they feel that they like to go direct, they like to compare, and sometimes they make mistakes because they don't have the preparation, and maybe it's wrong for them to do so, but that's the way it is, and I think younger people tend to go direct. So we must be, as an intermediary, prepared on how to offer things in that direct fashion, providing the right advice so people can choose the right product for their needs. Providers, certainly all subject to digitalization. I think in many other countries of the EU already, most of the processes that we have with insurance companies are digitalized, and we have to work on that. The tariffs are available on the internet. That requires very powerful CRMs as well as models in order to be able to manage a large pool of different offers effectively in that sense. Another thing that it's a trend. Each country goes at a different speed, but we are seeing the need to be reachable at all times. And obviously we cannot have 24-hour, it's very difficult and costly to have 24-hour staff to provide services to that, but people expect to be available, and there are already many countries that even small intermediaries are providing solutions to be reachable at all times through different programs tailor-made for this purpose. So keep in mind that more and more we are going to be expected to be reachable at all times, and we must prepare and have the right systems to do so. one question, and this is open to debate. Either insurance finance adopts digital, or perhaps digital adopts finance and insurance. It's going to happen one way or the other, so we must be proactive and really join the new digital system in a progressive way and in a sensitive way. I mean, we cannot expect to spend a fortune that something is not going to have a return. And many of the projects that we are seeing in Insurtech, in my opinion, they are not going to fly because they are not really adapted to the needs and they are not proper insurance. However, we must be proactive and we must embrace the new digital means in the best possible way. Issues that we continuously debate: how to regulate, supervise. Yesterday there was a debate about regulation and supervision. We feel that generally it should be based on a principle basis, which is good, but not every supervisor has these views, and also sometimes due to political reasons, the market environment or whatever, legislation is put through trying to cover gaps that have been seen or that have been spotted. So that's a risk that we have. Automated advice, already in the financial sector, at least in the US, is already working. I don't know if well is the proper the word, but certainly automated advice is being used for financial products. So eventually there might be part of the insurance product that will be subject to automated advice. One of the likeliest, because of similarities, would be insurance with an investment element. So there'll be groups of people, perhaps not the elder group, that are likely to like to purchase these products through automated advice. Key issue: cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is, I don't know if it affected Romania, but about 10 days ago, over a weekend, 3 of the main IBEX companies in Spain, including Telefónica, were affected by a cyber attack called WannaCry that affected apparently over 100 countries, even the National Health Service in the UK. The impact of this attack apparently was low, and as far as I've heard, it didn't really disrupt the processes, but it's something that to be ever more present, and the more connected things they're going to be more and more important. So cybersecurity, it's a potential area of development from an insurance point of view, as well as from an advice point of view, because it's not only just providing coverage, it's advising or assisting your clients in how to defend and structure the cybersecurity. Privacy data protections in Internet of Things, autonomous cars, that's coming later on, RegTech, legal certainty, that's part of the contracts to be developed at the European level. And coming soon, we see that there'll be turning savings into investments. I mean, there is money that at this stage is in the savings and is likely to move towards investments. Part of that can be captured by the insurance industry, particularly in countries of the CE, where I was hearing yesterday that yet the level of penetration of insurance with an investment element is relatively low. So this is potentially something that can be of use in the future. Pension products, data protection. This law is fundamental to operations. It'll be enforced, and it'll have to be enforced in next year in 2018. And it entails that without explicit consent, clients, you will not be able to provide offers to your clients. So that means to say that at this stage, implicit consent was good enough. If we sent an information to our client, say, well, we have you in our database and we will be using or providing offers of your interest in the future. If he didn't say no, and obviously you indicated how to say no, then that was legally valid. In the future, it won't be. So this is going to be very complicated, particularly how do you get all your clients to sign that? I mean, in my case in Spain, my brokerage firm, although my office are headquartered in Madrid, and that's the only office I have, but 70% of my clients are within Spain, so outside of Madrid. How do I get everyone to sign that? When you're talking of enterprises, SMEs, perhaps it's easier because you have a less number of clients and you have a more direct approach. But when you have retail clients, Is it easy to get everyone to sign that sort of thing? Internet can be a useful thing because if you have somewhere where you can post your obligation and he signs on the dot, that'll be easy to trace who signed, who hasn't, and to keep the track record of the different people. But beware, and the fines in terms of data protection are extremely fine. I mean, they can really make or break a company. Really, if you're fined on the Data Protection Act, many medium-sized brokers and certainly smaller ones will be facing bankruptcy due to the amount of the fines. I mentioned already cybersecurity, rationalization of the rules, access to insurance, financial advice, and consolidation. Consolidation, I think, is one of the key topics because really to provide a service and to be able to cope with the administrative burdens that exist and be able to provide the right level of service to the different clients, to be reachable at all times, there'll be consolidation. When I say consolidation, consolidation is not only becoming bigger or integrating different brokerage firms. There might be other formats that can be of use, such as purchase or grouping of purchases, associations, etc., that group people, group distributors, and could achieve the same means that if you have a bigger size. But I don't think that a small broker or intermediary in the medium term is likely to survive on its own. Whether they integrate or whether they look for another form of collaboration, that's entirely to each market and to everyone's views. But I don't really think that we will be able to compete and survive under the present scenario that happens in most of the countries. I mean, in Spain, there is 5,000 brokers, out of which only, let's say, 500 have a meaningful size. The rest are really small. So that's likely to change. And that will happen, I think, in every country at different speeds, so depending on the specificities of the market, but it will eventually happen.
I think that we could really take that as the main food for thought from your presentation, since we are now here in the brokers. And I would kindly ask you, just give us the other punchlines that you have. This is one important in my view, the one about the size of brokers. So maybe wrap it up with other punchlines, and thank you so much.
Thank you. The other issues is to be proactive in terms of adapting before things happen. I mean, I think we must be preparing in advance of things. With the IDD, in the best of the scenarios, it'll be approved for early next year, but as far as I can tell, in pretty much every other country, yet it's very delayed the process. So we have to work not on the basis of what's going to be, but what we think is going to be, so we are ready if it is to be applied in 2018.
Yeah, I think this is really important.
And that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.